It might sound blasphemous, but you can use machines in your strength and conditioning and still make great gains as a fighter. Don't get caught up in what people are trying to tell you is quote unquote functional. Everything is functional and everything has a use within your strength and conditioning program. It's just about picking the right tool to get the desired adaptation that you want. And your program is never going to just be machine-based anyway. Further, machines make better tools in some situations, which I'm going to cover in this video, compared to free weight variation. And if we look at a recent meta-analysis comparing free weights and machine-based exercise, they found no differences in strength, jump performance, or muscle hypertrophy. So if you have some kind of limitation that doesn't let you use free weights, machines make a great alternative. But I'm gonna give you 5 of my top machine exercises that you can use as a fighter that is going to make you stronger, bigger, and faster. So let's start with the lying leg curl. Not just the lying leg curl itself, but in particular, the 2 up, 1 down variation. Now, why the 2 up, 1 down? 2 up, 1 down means you accentuate the eccentric phase of the movement. When we're talking about eccentric overload, you need to use loads or speeds that far exceed the concentric capacity of the muscle contraction. So in this instance, you need to use a weight that you can't lift with one leg, but you're gonna resist and lower it with one leg. You're gonna use 2 legs to get it up, 1 leg to resist on the way down. Now what I like about this is because it's isolated to the hamstrings, you don't have huge residual fatigue going throughout the whole body as you would, for example, if you're doing eccentric overload Romanian deadlifts in this example, or even eccentric overload squats. Both going to cause a lot of fatigue. They require multiple spotters and a lot of equipment. This you can just do on a lying leg curl or even a seated leg curl, 2 up, 1 down, and you get the eccentric stimulus. Now I wouldn't do a boatload of volume on this because this is tough. Something like 3 reps a leg and you're doing maybe 2 to 3 sets. I also wouldn't do this before a kick heavy training session because you're also gonna have eccentric overload during that, and that's gonna be a lot of work on your hamstrings. The second exercise, the same thing but for the quads, 2 up, 1 down leg extension. Exactly the same concept, but this time we're targeting the quadriceps. Again, we're getting adaptations from these eccentric overload exercises that are going to benefit speed. Most importantly, we're gonna see an increase in muscle fascicle length, which means we're increasing the blocks of muscle fibers or sarcomeres in a row. The more blocks of these muscle fibers we have in a row, the faster the muscle contracts. So simple exercises like these can help push that adaptation. Same thing, 3 to 5-ish reps, you can get away with a little more reps in my experience doing the leg extension variation and the leg curl variation. And again, 2 to 3 sets. You would do these at the end of your training session typically because you don't want to do these before your main lifts unless you're doing the lying leg curl first in the session, and then you can go on and do your main lower body, say squat variation. That works quite well. The third machine exercise, a single leg press. Now a lot of people will say that single leg on the machine doesn't make sense because the whole idea of doing single leg is you work your quote unquote stabilizers. Don't listen to any of that bullshit. Stabilizers during lifting does not matter. And people act like these muscles don't get trained when you're doing machine-based work. 1, they do. 2, if you're worried about stabilizers, quote unquote, or balance, you're going to develop that doing your sport. What I like about the single leg press is obviously you have that stability component because you're in the machine, so you can overload your one-legged work. And because single leg work is balancing on one leg typically, you're limited in load because instability reduces force production. So a variation you can use is doing your single leg work in a machine like the leg press if you're looking to overload the force component. Especially if, for example, maybe you can't do heavy squatting because you can't have the barbell on your back or your shoulders. Maybe you have some kind of injury that limits you really loading the squat. You can do a single leg press and really load that one leg without having to worry about limitations in your upper body. That's what makes this variation so good for fighters. The fourth machine exercise, this time we're going upper body, the chest supported row. Doesn't matter what you're using for this. My personal favorite is the hammer iso row, just because it feels so good. But there are a billion other chest supported variations. For example, the bench pull, or what is known as the seal row, which is laying down flat on a bench and doing rows. You have on an incline bench doing chest supported dumbbell rows, anything that allows you to support your upper body to do the row. If you have lower back issues, or maybe you've just done a lower back work in that week or in that session and you want to take that out of the equation and you want to target the upper back or lats as part of your strength conditioning, then chest supported variations are awesome. It means you're not limited by what you can hold in, say, a bent over position, for example, like a bent over row, where you're limited by what you can hold with your lower back, glutes, and hamstrings. And if you've done a lot of lower body work already, you're just adding more fatigue on top of it. So chest supported variations should be in your program if you have the equipment to do them, which you most likely do, especially if you just have an adjustable bench and dumbbells. And finally, the fifth exercise, probably not a machine exercise in the traditional sense, but it's still using a piece of equipment like a machine. So the 45-degree hyper or 45-degree back extension, but for this one, we're using the side bend. This is one of my favorite trunk variations, or one of my favorite lateral flexion variations for the trunk. It lets you get a really strong stretch as you come down and through the eccentric, and you can even put your arm over your head to get even longer through those obliques. And you'll find that a lot of you probably feel a little stuck doing this. I know I definitely feel a little stuck and stiff, and it allows you to move that spine in a direction that you don't often move your spine. Further, you can take this to another level. If you've listened to any of the podcasts with Bill Smart or watched a previous video I did on long duration isometrics, you can actually hold that lengthened position on this and hold maybe a kettlebell or some kind of weight at your side, and you can actively try and pull yourself up, obviously while keeping that bent over position and that side bend. And it's essentially a long muscle length isometric in that position. A brutal variation that you can use. They can also potentially increase muscle fascicle length, just like we're doing with those heavy eccentric work. So give those 5 variations a go. Don't do them all in one program, but incorporate a couple of them as you need, depending on what your goals are within your training. And don't be scared of using machines when you have some kind of limitation where you can't use free weights, or you're trying to get some desired adaptation out of your program, and machines tend to work better for that desired adaptation. If you want to see me break down all of the research around machine training and free weights, I've actually done a video here you can check next.